Hey everybody! In our previous video, we created a new project in Oddisy. Today we're going to go over how to create and organize entries in Oddisy. If you haven't watched our first video in the series, check it out as we go into what Oddisy is. If you need to download Oddisy, check out the links in the description. We last left off with a new project with a default world entry created. This time we're going to flesh out our world a bit more by creating some additional entries. An entry in Oddisy can represent anything in your world, whether it be physical things like characters, locations, events, or collections of things like teams, factions, legendary sets of items, or even more conceptual things like magic systems, economy, or physics concepts. Today we're going to use some of the built-in types to create some characters and items. So let's create our first character. To do this, I'm going to click on the character filter in our entry types filter bar. And it will show all the characters that we have, which as of right now is none. However, you see this button up here has changed to Add Character. I'm going to go ahead and click on that button and it will pop up the character creation dialog. This dialog is the same across all entry types, but will output different entry types depending on which type you are creating. I can input the character's name here, so let's create Little Red Riding Hood. I can also choose what world I want Little Red Riding Hood to be a part of. In this case, I only have one world, so I'm just going to leave it as Fairy Tale World. I can also add images to my character entry via this image picker. When I click the Insert Image section, it pops up with the Image Picker browser. This allows me to import images from my computer or add images that I've already imported previously. I can also organize these images via the image database so that they're easy to find, but we'll cover that in a future video. Since I don't have any images in the image database, I'm going to import one from my computer. So I'll click on the section at the top of the dialog, and this will open a traditional file picker and allow me to choose an image. Let's just go ahead and choose the image I have of Little Red Riding Hood, and I'll click Open. This adds the image to the database for future use and selects the image to be used for this entry. Since I'm just adding this one image, I'll go ahead and click Done. And we can see that the image appears in the image section of the dialog. With all that information filled out, we'll go ahead and click Done, and my entry will be created and will appear on the home page. Let's click on the entry card to open the entry page up. The entry page contains all the information on your entry. The top bar houses name as well as buttons to favorite the entry, delete the entry, full screen the entry page, and close the entry page. Below the top bar on the left side, we have all of our entries info. Starting with the image in the description. The image widget can store multiple images. You can add more images with this plus icon. This will open up the image picker again, and we can add another image. Let me just pick one real quick. You can navigate between the images using these arrows. You can reorder the images by clicking the Reorder button. This will open up the image reorder dialog where you can drag the images into the desired position. You can delete an image from the entry using the Delete button. This will just delete the image from the entry though, and not from the image database in Oddisy. You can access the image database using this button. We'll go over the image database more in a future video, but it provides a way to organize all your images into collections, which function pretty similarly to folders. Moving over to the description widget, you can type your description in this widget and it will automatically save whatever you type. I'm going to go ahead and paste something in here that I wrote for Little Red Riding Hood. The green check mark here indicates that our work has been saved. And as we can see, a small portion of the description that we add here will show up on the entry card. Below the image and description widget, we have a search bar that allows you to search all of the fields below. Fields allow you to describe and keep track of different aspects of your entry. The fields area of the entry page is divided into sections. Every entry has a general section where you can put all of the general info that doesn't fit into any other sections. Our character has another section called Basic Data with some fields already added. This comes from the character entry type, and we will discuss this further in the next video. For now, let's add some fields to Red Riding Hood. Our Red Riding Hood character has a nickname, so let's add a field for that. So in the general section, I'm going to click the Add Field button, and that will pop up this dialog giving me the choice to choose between field and a predefined field. I'm going to go ahead and click Field. From here, I can name the field. I'm going to name it Nickname, and I can also choose what type of field it is. Oddisy has multiple different field types that it supports. There is short text, which can be used for anything that is around one line. There's long text, which works similar to the description widget and is used whenever you have multiple lines of text. There's number, which can accept a number and can even be set up to format that number, sort of like we see in the age field on Red Riding Hood. There's yes and no, which is used for any attributes that the entry either will or will not have. There's a drop-down where you can choose between multiple options. This is most useful when used as a predefined field, which we'll be going over in the next video. There is color, which allows you to choose a color via a color picker. There's list, which provides you with a list of short text widgets. And finally, image, which allows you to have a single image as a field. For the nickname field, we're going to use short text. So I'll choose that, and then I'll click done, and it adds the field to the general section. We can go ahead and fill the field out. So I'm going to fill it out with the nickname red, and then I click enter to save it. Little Red Riding Hood also has a favorite color, so let's add a field for that. So we'll create another field that uses the color type, and we'll name it Favorite Color. I will then click on the field, and the color picker will pop up, and I will choose this dark red color. Oh, you can also enter the hex value into this field if you have a specific color that you want to use. Let's go ahead and fill out some of the fields that are already here. So for age, we'll put 13. For gender, we'll put female. For weight, we'll put 95 pounds. We'll go ahead and choose eye color, skin color. Now, we're also going to want to have a field for hair color, so let's go ahead and make that. Normally, I would add it to the basic data section using this button, since that's where I want it. But for the purposes of this tutorial, let's say I accidentally added it to the general section. So I'll create a color field named hair color. I'll choose the hair color and oops, it's in the wrong section. That's okay, because I can move it to the correct section by right-clicking and selecting Move to Section. It will pop up a dialog to choose the section. I'm going to choose Basic Data. This then moves the hair color field to the Basic Data section. You can also add other entries to sections as well. So let's create some entries for items that Red Riding Hood has. To do this, I will click on the Add Entry button under General. This will pop up the Entry Selection dialog. And since I don't have any other entries, I will use this plus button to create a new one. I will then select the entry type. I'm going to choose Item. And we'll have the entry creation dialog like we've seen before. I will name this one Red Cloak. And I will choose an image for it. And click Done. I will also create another entry in the same way for her basket of food. And as you can see, these entries were created and selected automatically in the entry selection dialog. I will then click Done, and these entries will be added to the general section, as well as appearing in the Linked Entries panel. The Linked Entries panel houses all of the entries that are linked to the current entry, even if they're not organized in a section. These links work both ways, so if I click on the Red Cloak entry, I will see that Little Red Riding Hood is in its Linked Entries panel. Let's go back to Red Riding Hood. You can also define relationships between linked entries. To do this, right-click on the entry card that you want to edit the relationship of, and select the Edit Relationship option. This will open up the relationship dialog, and you can define the relationship both ways. So I will define the Red Cloak as Red Riding Hood's wardrobe, and Red Riding Hood as the cloak's owner. click Done. The relationship then appears under the name of the entry card. And if we open up the cloak, we'll see the relationship from its perspective on its entry page. You can add your own sections by clicking the Add Section button. A dialog will appear prompting for a name. I'm going to create a section that keeps track of Red Riding Hood's friends. So I will type Friends and click Done, and my section appears on the entry page. So let's add Granny as one of Red Riding Hood's friends. So we'll follow the same steps we did when we added the items, but we will choose character instead. So I'll put the name Granny, and then I'll choose an image, and I already have the Granny image imported, so I'll click that and click Done. And this will go ahead and add Granny under Friends in Little Red Riding Hood. Let's edit the relationship for Granny and Red Riding Hood like we did before. So we'll put grandmother and granddaughter. So we can see it added the grandmother relationship to Granny, and if we open up Granny's entry page, we can see that Red Riding Hood is linked and the relationship is defined. But Red Riding Hood is a friend of Granny as well. So we'd also want to create a section under Granny called Friends, and add Red Riding Hood to that, as well as add some of the same fields that we added to Red Riding Hood, like hair color, to Granny as well. As you can see, it's kind of annoying that we have to set all this up again, since those fields and sections are going to be used on all of the characters that we create. It'd be nice if there was some way to make every character that we create have these sections and fields already set up. Well, luckily, Oddisy has a system for this: predefined fields and entry types, which we'll be using in the next video to really start growing our world. Thanks for watching, and we hope that you're enjoying Oddisy. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Oddisy as well as what you're using it for in the comments below. You can also join our Discord to chat with us and others that are using Oddisy. The link is in the description. If you want to support Oddisy's development, consider joining our Patreon, which gives you access to sneak peeks at future features, early access to videos, and even early access to releases. Link for that is in the description as well. Thank you for watching. See you next time.